speaker. Our guest speaker this evening is Michael Carnes. If you've been in Wayne very long, you've seen his name or face as the managing editor of the Wayne Herald, and you've also seen him online as host of the Wayne State Coaches Show on mywaynenews.com. Mike is a 30-year veteran of the media business. He has written numerous award-winning columns and stories, lent his voice to the airwaves on the radio with his sports play-by-play talents, and was a trendsetter in the early days of the internet with his groundbreaking website, Nebraska Wrestling Illustrated, that covered high school and college wrestling in Nebraska in the early 2000s. More important than all of that, Mike is a passionate father of 2 beautiful daughters and a friend to many across the country. He is also a survivor. In November 2012, he became an author with the publishing of his book, Call Me a Survivor, that details his life as a survivor, not a victim, of a child sexual assault. He is here to tell us his story. Please welcome a true survivor, Mr. Michael Carnes.
Good evening, everybody. I am, as the sign says on the wall, I am Michael Carnes, and I am not a victim of child sexual assault. I am a survivor of child sexual assault. I was sexually assaulted about 6 weeks shy of my 10th birthday in the small town of Newman Grove, Nebraska, which is located about 35 or 40 miles southwest of Norfolk. Just to kind of describe what had happened, I was hanging out with some friends. We were doing what 9-year-old boys in 1976 normally did, which was basically ride bikes around town and talk about baseball and cartoons and classroom activities and things of that nature. It's a pretty small circle that we had to work around with at that time. That evening, I was hanging out with some friends, and the older brother of one of my classmates took my bike from me and decided to take it for a little joyride. At some point in time there, I felt like, you know what, I'm a little uncomfortable with this guy riding my bike around, and asked him to give it back to me so that I could go home for dinner. He offered to give me a ride home. And being a 9-year-old boy at the time, and being the kind of guy that basically takes everybody's word that they're going to do what they say they do, and being the naive little boy that I was at the time, I said, sounds like a good idea, I'll hop on back. We never made it home. We wound up behind the swimming pool in a small town in Newman Grove, Nebraska, and I was presented with 2 options. I could either succumb to his lustful sexual desires, or I could have the crap beat out of me and possibly be killed. If you're a 9-year-old kid, what do you think your options are at that point? Neither one sounds very appealing, does it? When the situation was done and over with, he left me with one simple comment. He said that if I told anybody, he'd kill me. You can only imagine what kind of terror was running through my mind and through my heart as I got on my bike and pedaled home that evening back to the house. My mom and my sister were both looking for me, and couldn't find me because I was behind the swimming pool. I was in a secluded place. Nobody could see us back there. Back in that area of the town now, there's a golf course there. There wasn't a golf course there back in 1976. So there was no chance that somebody might have been coming up the 7th fairway and seen anything that was going on. When I came screaming through the house, my mom realized right away that something was wrong. And she called the cops. We went to the hospital. My dad was working nights at Lindsay Manufacturing, and he got a phone call that something was wrong, and his son had been hurt. And if you get a phone call at work saying that your child's been hurt, there's a zillion things that probably run through your head. He fell out of a tree and broke his arm. I was the kind of kid that, I would climb anything, so could have fallen out of a tree and broken an arm. Fell off my bike, ran face first into a door. I was kind of a dorky kid. I did some goofy things every once in a while. Still doing it today at age 47. He could have thought of 1,000 different things, and his son being sexually assaulted was the last thing. He would have never thought that. And so you can only imagine the frustration and the anger and the guilt that both he and my mom were going through, because they felt like they could protect their kid. I've always been a good kid that tries to be tall. I've tried all my life to be 6'5". This was probably one of my better efforts. Unfortunately, I have pants that are built for somebody that's more like 5'8". The flood did not come. We were told that it was coming that day, but it didn't quite make it that day. But I was prepared. I was prepared as a young boy. Yeah. And my family is me, my mom, my dad, and my sister. My mom really hasn't aged a whole lot. Dad has. He's gotten a little taller. And the four of us, basically went through the first few years of our life with a pretty, healthy, happy, family-go-lucky type of thing. We had a lot of fun, and I think it looks like I'm about ready to get in trouble there. I used to get in trouble frequently when I was a kid. I never looked at it as getting in trouble. I was just exploring my horizons, but that's the way it goes, I guess. My life changed, though, when I met this guy. This guy's name is Billy Joe Dickey. He's currently living in Norfolk, Nebraska. He is a registered sex offender. Before the Nebraska legislature did away with the level designations, he was a level 3 sex offender. Level 3 sex offenders are the most likely to reoffend, most likely to sexually assault anyone. This guy had a long and dubious history in the Madison County court system. And when he sexually assaulted me in 1976, he was arrested, but he was a juvenile. He was only 14, 15 years old at the time. And so he wasn't going to get much in the way of a punishment. In fact, he got probation, and really to call it a slap on the wrist would be a joke. Because he obviously did not learn his lesson, and continued to go through life and racked up quite a nice little rap sheet over the course of his life. And with him having done what he did to me, my life growing up changed. Rather than being the happy-go-lucky, fun-loving kid that I was at the time, life became literally a crapshoot. There were days that were good days. There were days that were awful days. I have on at least 3 separate occasions contemplated suicide during the course of my life. There were just times where the pain and the suffering and the frustration and the anger were just more than I could handle. And I went through a really rough life as looking at myself as a victim of sexual assault. And we have a lot of kids out there. I'm guessing that there are a number of you in here tonight who have been victimized or have been through the experience of sexual assault. Recent study showed from the Centers for Disease Control that 1 in 4 boys, or 1 in 4 girls, and 1 in 6 boys were sexually assaulted before their 18th birthday. If we took the numbers in here, there's probably about 10 of you at least that have been through this experience. State of Nebraska, there are, my computer's over there, why am I pointing that way? The state of Nebraska in K-12 public schools, in all the public schools of the state of Nebraska, there are approximately 300,000 children in our school districts. If you plugged in those the ratio of those numbers, the 1 in 4 and the 1 in 6, and you plug that into every elementary, middle, and high school student in the state of Nebraska, the number of children who have experienced the hell of sexual assault that I've been through, and that some of you have probably been through, it's approximately 60,000. That's 2/3 of Memorial Stadium. Take Memorial Stadium and basically start in the north end zone right about the goalpost and take out every fan all the way to about where the band is on the 20-yard line in the East Stadium. That's how many kids in Nebraska have been sexually assaulted before their 18th birthday, based on that ratio. That's a lot of people. Anybody here who has not been to a Nebraska football game? Okay. Talk to your friends. They'll tell you how many people are in Memorial Stadium on a Saturday afternoon during football season. Who's sexually assaulting our children? Who is crazy enough and vile and disgusting enough to do such a thing? Well, our children are being sexually assaulted by their parents. They're being sexually assaulted by their siblings, extended family, uncle and aunt, cousin, grandparent. They're being sexually assaulted by a minister or a priest by a coach, a neighbor, a friend of the family, other acquaintances, even other children. Stranger danger. We talk about don't talk to strangers. You see any strangers in that group there? You pretty much have somebody in your family or somebody that you know in that group of people. 93% of all children who have been sexually assaulted know their attackers. I knew mine. That bastard's the older brother of one of my classmates. I knew who he was. I didn't realize that he had in him what he had in him. You know, he has gone on to put together quite a record. Tell you a little story about redemption. He sexually assaulted me in 1976. And about 20 years later, as fate would have it, I happened to be working at the Norfolk Daily News. And at the time we were going from pasting up pages to laying up pages on computer. If you're a journalism major, you know what I'm talking about. You don't know about the paste up part probably, but you know about the electronic pagination. One day I was going back to check on a page that I had sent back off my computer, and there happened to be a page set up on the pasteboard, and it happened to be the page that had all the county record information, like speeding tickets, divorce hearings, court cases, stuff like that. It's one of those pages where if you're reading the newspaper, you look at it, it's kind of like I wonder if I know somebody here. You know, it's like, who was busted this week? And that was exactly the state of mind I had when I went and looked at that page, saying, yeah, I wonder if there's somebody I know here. About halfway down, here he is. Billy Joe Dickey, first-degree sexual assault. Had an immediate flashback to 20 years ago. And at that point in time, I felt like I needed to do something. I went to the county attorney's office that day and asked him if there's anything I could do to help him. He actually knew my case from 1976. He was a member of the county attorney's office back then, and he actually knew about my case from way back then, before I even walked in. So that was kind of nice to know that somebody at least remembered my experience. I asked him if there was something I could do, and he suggested writing a letter to the district judge and explain my case, or explain my connection to the case, and why I think he needs to have the maximum penalty of 2 to 5 years in prison. That's right, sexual assault in Nebraska, 2 to 5 years. It's gone up since then. I believe I want to say it's 10 years now, but I can't remember that right off the top of my head. But at any rate, I went home that night and wrote that letter. Wrote about a 3-page letter to District Judge Robert Enns. It was the first time I'd ever written about my experiences as a victim of sexual assault. My mom and my dad and I went to his court case that day to watch his sentencing and see what would happen, see if that letter would have any effect. My dad also wrote a letter. Did you write a letter, Mom? Okay, Mom wrote a letter too. I can never remember if you did or not. I knew Dad did. So the three of us had all written letters to the judge and said, here's why you need to seriously consider throwing the book at this guy. He was called up to the judge that day, and the judge kind of went over his case. He was going to plead no contest. And the judge looked over the paperwork for the case that he was there for, and then at one point he stopped and brought some other paperwork up in front of him and started asking questions about a little boy that he had sexually assaulted back in 1976 in Newman Grove, Nebraska. Do you have any idea what happened to that young boy? That was a question the judge asked that guy. Before he could answer, the judge or the county attorney announced in front of the judge and everybody that young boy is sitting here in the courtroom this afternoon. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to stand before the judge to be sentenced for anything, but I'm pretty sure that if you know you're about to get the book thrown at you, probably not a pleasant experience. The judge basically read him the riot act for about, it seemed like a minute, 2 minutes, it was probably about 10 or 15 seconds, and sentenced him to the maximum 5 years in prison. My mom and my dad and I, we all looked at each other like we just won the lottery. And we couldn't believe that our numbers had actually come up. It was the first time that me writing about my experience actually had an impact. But the fact of the matter is, my situation was unusual. I was blessed with parents who cared about their kids and were quick to seek justice on the situation. You know, a lot of sexual assault cases go unreported. You know, Michelle and Rebecca both mentioned, you know, about people who experience this and don't report it. 12 to 30% of sexual assault cases are reported to the authorities. And, you know, there are a lot of reasons why. And, you know, shame, feeling like you had something to do with it, even though you didn't. But there's a lot of reasons why cases don't go reported. And a number of reasons also have to do with the fact that we still have not completely evolved as a society to where we take this crime seriously enough, particularly when it comes to children. And people who are victims, this part of this I was really nervous to talk about this part of it, because victims who tend to become perpetrators, 2 out of 5 of adolescents who are sexually abused children were themselves victims of physical abuse. And if you're talking sexual assault, it's 4 out of 8, or 4 to 8 out of 10. That was something that I've always been worried about, because as somebody who's been a victim, it'd be very easy for me to project my anger and my experience onto other unsuspecting people. Something that you know, I'm very happy to say that it's something I've never done, because I know what that experience is like, and to have anybody go through that experience has been there's just no way that I could live with myself if I allowed something like that to happen. My daughter is 2 weeks away from being a college graduate. She's going to be an elementary education major at the University of Nebraska. And she always grew up knowing that Dad had her back. If something ever happened to her, if somebody ever laid a hand on her in that kind of manner, her dad had always said that if something ever happened to her, the guy had better hope the cops get there first. Because if I get there first, I'm judge, jury, executioner, and we don't have an appeals court in my law. Thankfully, we didn't have to worry about that. She's grown up to be a healthy, happy, and wonderful person. But as far as my life goes, I continue to struggle with it. And about 7 or 8 years ago, things were pretty dark in my world. I had reached a point where I felt like I had failed in just about everything that I had done in my life. Even though I've won a zillion awards for my writing and photography and newspaper work, our groundbreaking stuff that we did with Nebraska Wrestling Illustrated, nobody had ever done anything like what we were doing on the internet as far as covering high school and college wrestling. I had a wonderful daughter that, you know, even though I was divorced from my ex-wife, had a great life going with her. I had all these positive things going in my life, but because I kept thinking of myself as a victim, and having gone through the hell that I went through, it just seemed like I was digging my hole deeper. And it finally reached breaking point in the summer of 2006. I was living in South Sioux City. I'd gotten out of the newspaper business because I wanted to go into business for myself. I had a great business idea and a horrible business plan. Do not start your business with Visa. That's all I'm saying. I eventually reached a point where it seemed like the only way out was to take myself out. And I had lived in an apartment that was about a block, or about a quarter of a mile from the Missouri River. And one night, when it was about as dark as it was ever going to get, I walked out to the river that night, and I stood there and just kind of looked at the water as it rolled by. And the river was running pretty high at that point in time. We had quite a bit of rain, and so the river was pretty high. And I thought, I could take 2 steps. By the time they find my bloated body somewhere between Dakota City and Blair, this is all over. I don't have to worry about it ever again. I can finally be at peace. And there were 2 things that stopped me. One was my daughter. My daughter is going to graduate 2 weeks from today, and her dad's going to be there to see it. Unless I win the lottery, then I'm out of here. But she's going to graduate in 2 weeks. Dad's going to be there for it. Dad was there for her high school graduation. He wouldn't have been there if I'd have taken those 2 steps. God willing, I'm going to be there when she gets married. Hopefully that's not for a couple more years yet. That's something we're still working out. But that, and there was this little voice inside of me that said, you know what, you got a lot more going for you in life than you are believing right now. And maybe you need to take a step back and figure out what you want to be when you grow up. So I did. I walked away from the river that night, and I walked actually I called the boss the next day. He was out of town, but I called the boss the next day and quit. Got out of the newspaper business. Only thing I'd done for 20 some years. Quit cold turkey right there. Said, I've got to figure something out. This isn't doing it for me. Got out of the business for a couple of years, saw my daughter graduate, and talked to a friend of mine who's a life coach and a very old and dear friend of mine. And he helped me work out a lot of my issues and a lot of the anger and frustration that I was going through. And to make a long story a little less long, about 3 or 4 years later, I got a phone call from another friend of mine by the name of Kevin Peterson. Kevin's the publisher of the Wayne Herald. I'd gotten back in the newspaper business the summer before out in Ogallala, and he just called me randomly one day and said, hey, how are things going? Going pretty good. He says, would you like to be closer to your family? Which family members are we talking about? Because I got a couple uncles and aunts that I'd rather not be around. But, you know, mom and dad, sister, yeah, okay. Well, opportunity to be the managing editor of the Wayne Herald had presented itself, and I came back here, and to say that it's probably one of the better moves I've made personally and professionally would be a grand understatement. I've been here for almost 4 years, and you know, some days I have to slap myself in the face just to knock the smile down a little bit and keep me from getting too crazy. Life had gotten a lot better. And then November of 2011 rolled around. We all know who that guy is, right? There's nobody here that's been under a rock here the last 2 years. Am I correct here? We all know who Jerry Sandusky is? He's the assistant football coach at Penn State University who used his youth organization to systematically groom and rape at least 10 boys that we know about, possibly more. He's doing time in prison. He's going to be doing the rest of his life in prison for what he did. When that story broke, it was like having a scab on your arm and just having somebody coming up and just ripping the scab right off, and just reopening an old wound in my heart and in my mind. And I called into a sports talk show that night because they were talking about Penn State and how this story was going to impact Joe Paterno's legacy, and how it was going to impact Penn State football, and how this is going to impact college football and college athletics and the connection with youth and the college athletic community. And all things that probably should be discussed at some point in time, but nobody's talking about the kids. There's 10 boys that guy raped that we know of. And nobody's talking about them. And at that point in time, I felt, you know what, somebody needs to do something. And I felt like, you know, I needed to do something. I needed to figure out a way to tell my story and to help others. And you would think that with a guy with the creative talents that God gave me, that this seemed like a pretty good idea, pretty easy idea. It took me about 6 months to figure it out. And I'm one of these guys that if I can't figure something out, I get pissed. I'm sorry. I get upset because I want to solve the problem. I'll sit and work on a jigsaw puzzle for 3 hours to get one section done. And I couldn't figure this out. And it was slowly driving me back into that depression that I was experiencing 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I didn't want to go there again. Because I knew how close I was. I knew what that feeling was like. And I sought out some therapy. And then that summer I happened to go visit my friend out in Colorado. And Kevin and I we've been friends for much longer than either one of us cares to admit. Longer than most of you have been alive. We'll just say that. And when I left town that day, it was 106 degrees. I'm thinking, you know what, it's going to be cool out in Denver. It's going to be, it's nice out in the mountains. It's going to be beautiful. Great. I get out there, find out that his air conditioner had gone out, and they were in the middle of the same heat wave we were in. So there was no comfort in their end, let's just say. And one night, I was trying to fall asleep, having a hard time falling asleep, and I just dozed off when a voice came to me. And it said, write the book. That's all it said. It didn't say, write a book, write this book, write the book. And at that point, it had suddenly dawned on me. The light bulb went on. And I went downstairs that night and started writing a makeshift outline, and just it was like mental diarrhea, man. The words just came flying out of me. I wrote the first 3 chapters that first night. Kevin, my friend, has lost all hearing in one ear and sleeps on his good ear. But about 4 o'clock in the morning, he heard noise downstairs. And I don't know how he could have possibly heard the noise if he's sleeping on his good ear and can't hear anything out of his bad one. My guess is that there was a voice talking to him too. It said, "You're wanted downstairs." And he came downstairs, found out what I was doing, and immediately sat down in front of his laptop computer, started whittling away. To call him a good graphic designer would be like calling the Pacific Ocean damp. The other guy's beyond brilliant. In about 10 to 15 minutes, bingo, there's your cover, Mike. And I wrote, like I said, I wrote about the first 3 chapters that night, and eventually finished the book in about 6 months' time. My goal was to get it done by the start of football season. Missed that goal, but my second goal was to make sure it was done on the 1-year anniversary of the Jerry Sandusky story breaking. And I managed to make it with a day to spare. And right now it's published on Amazon.com and also on Barnes & Noble. It's available for print, or if you have a Kindle or a Nook and you're one of those e-reader type of people, and God bless you if you are. The books are available there. And so the question is, now what? You got the book written. Now what do you do? And I thought about that for a few minutes, and I thought, you know what? I need to take what I wrote in that book and tell people that what happened to me can happen to you. If you're a victim of sexual assault, you don't have to look at yourself as a victim, because you are worthy. If you're a victim, you look at yourself as not being of value, but not being worth the effort, not being worth anybody's time or thought or consideration. And take it from somebody who's a 37-year survivor. You are worthy, no matter what your situation, no matter what has happened to you in your life. In fact, I'd like to invite you to turn on. There you go. Just through the past. Tell the past to take a hike. You can't unhappen what happened. Okay? We can't undo the snowstorm that we had a week ago. There's some farmers who actually appreciated the moisture, believe it or not. We can't undrink the last beer that we had at the party that made us sick and gave us a nice little hangover the next day. We can't go back and erase any of the things that have happened in our past. I can't go back and be unsexually assaulted. I'd love to. I'd love to go back and undo what happened there. But then, if I did that, would I be standing here today? Odds are probably not. The toughest thing in all of my transitioning myself from thinking of myself as a victim to thinking of myself as a survivor is to forgive. I never talked to the guy, but at some point I felt like I had to at least forgive him in my heart. And maybe someday we'll have a face-to-face meeting and say, you know what? I'm never going to forget what you did to me, but I forgive what you did to me, and I hope that at some point in time you can find peace in your life and can somehow deal with the devils that are are making you who you are. The hardest part in all of this is to forgive who has done wrong to you. And when it's something like this, it's even tougher. I've somehow found a way to do it, and maybe one day we'll be able to meet face to face and have a discussion. In the meantime, if you are a victim of sexual assault and you haven't already done this, tell somebody. Tell anybody. Tell everybody. You know, nobody has to go through life being a victim of sexual assault. Nobody does. And you need to tell somebody, whoever it is. I mean, if it's a teacher, if it's your friend, if it's the police, if you still have evidence available that can be used to possibly convict somebody, tell somebody. Don't hide it. Don't throw it away or say I'm not worthy of it. I don't need this. Tell somebody. Just tell anybody. You know, words have a lot of power. It's amazing what a word can do. The word victim is defined as a person who is deceived or cheated by his or her own emotions or ignorance, by the dishonesty of others, or by some impersonal agency. Now we can go through life with the negative persona that a victim is. Or we can go through life as a survivor, who is a person who continues to function and prosper in spite of opposition, hardship, or setbacks. I've been through a lot of hardship. Been through a lot of setbacks. Been through a good deal of opposition. The fact that I'm standing here today talking to you guys, of all the things that I thought I would do in my life, public speaking was one thing I thought I would do. Public speaking about this, up until about a year ago, I would have never envisioned myself standing here talking to you today. You know, we are not victims. We are not victims. We're survivors. Those of you who have been sexually assaulted, you need to know that. You're not a victim. You're a survivor. Key to survival and to living a positive life is to have some good people behind you. This motley crew is my family. The kids down front there, the one on the far left is my daughter. The other three are my sister's children. The little girl is going to be the President of the United States at some point in time. She already has the dictatorial personality that a president needs. She makes Barack Obama look like a diplomat. John, the little boy that's sitting down there, he is going to be the Masters champion, probably around 2025, 2030 maybe, somewhere around there. He's a very passionate golfer, passionate sports addict. He's a lot like his dad and his Uncle Mike, because he can't tell you about his homework assignment, but he can tell you who won the NCAA tournament, who won any sporting event, who drives number 20 in NASCAR. He'll tell you everything. Chase is the older of my sister's family, and he's going to be a movie director someday. I hope he'll be the next Quentin Tarantino or the next Steven Spielberg one or two. And of course the rest of the family, my mom, my sister, my stepmom, my dad, me, and then my stepdad and my brother-in-law Bill Cannon in the background. And quick plug, if you ever need a washer and dryer, talk to Bill, Cannon Maytag in Norfolk. Sorry, he didn't pay me for that, but maybe you should. My sister and I have shared a lot of memories together. We're pretty much each other's best friend. She holds a rather dubious, I guess would be the word, distinction. She is the only person to have ever given me a blood rose. This is my sister. I have never paid her back for that. This is my best friend Kevin. Kevin and I have been best friends since he was my height. He's 6'7" now. To see the two of us walking down the hallway in school together, it was really kind of comical, I guess, to see. You know, this guy walking down the hall together. He's a creative genius. Makes me look like an amateur. He's a brilliant graphic designer and website developer, and is also a tremendous life coach and the best friend that a human being can possibly have without having to pay for the privilege. He's an awesome guy. This is another awesome guy in my life. His name is Andy Seeley. He's the sports information director at the University of Central Florida. That's his daughter and my niece. Their families got together in Florida here recently, and that was the only decent picture I have of him. I have another one of him fishing with my sister, and my sister's putting the bait on the hook for him. So I thought that'd be kind of embarrassing for him to have that picture shown here. But he's kind of the brother from another mother. His mom and dad gave me my start at the newspaper business many years ago, and he's been a wonderful friend and been, you know, a voice that I can talk to, somebody that I can talk to and bounce life's issues off of. Whoops, back it up. That right there is the most beautiful girl on the planet. Now, some of you in the audience may have an argument on that, and I appreciate that, but she's always going to be number one in my book. That's my daughter, Kylie. She started out with designs of being an athlete. She played soccer for 2 years, and one day told her dad that she was retiring from soccer. She was 8 years old. I don't get it. She's going to graduate in about 2 weeks from the University of Nebraska. The other girl in that photo is my other daughter, Abby. She lives in Arkansas. Her birth mother and I were together for a short time when I was in Norfolk, and things happen. And we made the decision, considering our personal situations at that time, that the best thing for her would be to give her up for adoption. As fate would have it, her birth mother's cousin and his wife were looking to adopt a child. God works in mysterious ways, folks. And she is in a healthy and happy environment there. She's a brilliant musician, a brilliant student. I'm not sure who she got that from. It's kind of a toss-up as whether it was me or her. My daughter and I have started a tradition at the College World Series every year. We make sure we take one photo at the College World Series. What our faces are doing at the particular time when the photo is taken is just a totally random thing. It's never the same face twice. Those are the people that are part of my life, and they're part of the reason why I've been able to look at myself not as a victim of sexual assault, as a survivor. If anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. As long as you don't ask about the bloody nose thing, there's still a lot of therapy needs to be done on that.
Was there like a pivotal moment when you chose, I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor? Do you remember that moment?
Yeah, I was in Chicago. It was the summer of 2009. It was right before I started work here in Wayne. My friend Kevin, he's a life coach, and he has immersed himself in a lot of information from a lot of people. And one of the people that he read and had me read was a guy by the name of James Arthur Ray. And he had a seminar in Chicago that summer, and we had kind of one of those sessions where you had to do something to kind of break through those negative things that you were experiencing. And there was a story behind it. Everybody had this board that was about an 8.5 by 11 inch board, about the size of a piece of paper, and about 1 inch thick, if that. And everybody was going to break through that board. We were going to come through that board. Somebody's going to hold it out there for us, and we're going right through it. And to kind of give us a build up the moment, I guess. He had us close our eyes and look at where we would be 1 year from now, 5 years from now, and 10 years from now, if we chose to continue that negative mindset that we were on. And to make a long story short, by the time 10 years rolled around, the only thing I could see was my family standing over me in a box. I could see myself dead in 10 years, if that. And so when we were all done with that, I mean, I was crying like I haven't cried before or since. And so it came time to break the boards. Kevin told me I looked like I was ready to go 12 rounds with Vander Holyfield, because I was jacked up. They could have put 10 boards in front of me, and I'd have come through all 10 of them at one time. And fortunately, he has long arms, so he had time to brace himself for the hell that was about to come through that board. And what we had to do was we had to write two things on the board. And on one side was that limiting belief that we were going to break through, and on the other side was, what was on the other side. And basically, the board, I still have the board, and on the back, one side it says, "You are not worthy." That was what I was coming through. And on the other side it said, "You are worthy." And I went through it like a piece of paper. I mean, it was like coming through a cocktail napkin. And that was kind of the moment where, like, yeah, there is some good I can do with my life, other than just existing. Other questions?
I kind of have two. How did you realize that you needed to be forgiven, and what were you thinking? What was your process to realize you needed to forgive?
It's really kind of difficult to explain, but part of the thing of I guess carrying around the hate that I had for him. What good is that going to do me? I mean, I'm never going to. The odds are I'm never going to see this guy again. And it's kind of my dad had a saying when I was a kid, and I was getting bullied by some kids or something. He's like, you know what? Don't let them live rent free. Let them live rent free in your head. Which is basically saying if you're letting him think of, if you're thinking about him doing you wrong, he's winning without even having to look at you or throw anything at you. Or just the fact that he exists is enough. And at some point, I thought, you know what, I need to apply that to this guy. I mean, I'm never going to forget what happened. That's like I said, you can't undo it. But I can't forgive him for what had happened, and at least put that part of it away, and find some peace on the other side of that. It's the toughest part, because if something were to happen where you're physically assaulted by somebody, I mean, you don't want to forgive. You want revenge, baby. You're going to get it back, and get it back in spades. What good is that? Now you're both pissed off at each other. But in my case, he was living rent free in my head for 30 years, and he got the eviction notice. Any other questions?
With that, was there a moment where you chose to forgive also, just like when you chose to be a survivor?
Yeah, I think at some point, taking inventory of things, I said, you know what? Why am I carrying this around? So let it go. And it's tough to, when you have that kind of baggage that you're dragging around for that long. It's kind of tough to let it go. But if I could let the baggage that's hanging over my belt line go that easy, I'd weigh about 130 pounds right now. Somehow that was tougher. But did they mention that you get extra credit if you ask questions in whatever class you happen to be in, enrolled in?
What are your goals now?
Well, my goals now are to do this a lot more often. And no offense, but to a lot bigger crowds too. I appreciate everybody here being here tonight. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever had to speak. I've spoken publicly for very small groups. I'm a member of the Toastmasters Club here in Wayne and get a chance to speak publicly on a regular basis there. But this is the first time that I spoke before a group like this, and I really do appreciate you guys coming out tonight. And I hope that you get something out of this. And if you are somebody who's been through this experience, You just need to know that there's peace on the other side. Go find it, because it's worth the trip. Anybody else? Okay, thanks a lot.
Your wonderful presentation, Mike. Really appreciate you sharing that because